People have paid hundreds of dollars to acquire the teachings that I'm about to give you for free. This is a histogram of one of my students. It shows that the more GPM you have, the higher your chances of winning. I've coached more than 100 different carry players, and the conclusion I've made from my experience is that the only aspect required to get up to divine MMR is just knowing how to farm properly. If you can learn this one thing, I can guarantee that you will have more than 70% win rate in your games. Dota is a game of resources. Whoever utilizes the resources better wins most of the time. As a carry, you need items to be useful. For items, you need to know how to be able to farm well. Having items is one thing, but having good item timings is another. If a game goes to 50 minutes, yeah, you will eventually get the items that you need in order to have an impact. But why wait for a miracle 15-minute stretch when you can do the same thing in almost half the time? In lower brackets, carry players literally do not know how to hit creeps. Don't agree with me? Go look at the net worth graphs of your last 10 games and see that in how many games you have more than 10,000 net worth at minute 20. While you're at it, load up the replays of some of those games and check how many players have close to 180 to 200 last hits at 20 minutes. In comparison, open a high rank game and check the same thing. In a game of Dota, you essentially take MMR from other players. This, however, requires you to be better than them. Now take this one factor, which is farming. If you do this better than the 9 other players in your games, how will you not climb? Good farm leads to high net worth, which leads to more items, which eventually results in an easy W. Imagine there are 2 cores. One is level 15 with 10k net worth and the other is level 11 with 7k net worth. Who will win? With that being said, let's move on to what practices and mentality you need to adopt to be able to farm as well as high rank players. The first thing that you need to do is set last hit goals for yourself. The goals should be oriented in a way that they are related to your number of last hits at 10, 15 and 20 minutes of the game. The standard last hit numbers for good carry players are 60 last hits by 10 minutes, 120 to 150 by 15 minutes, and 180 to 200 by 20 minutes. If you're playing a hero that does not have innate farming capabilities like Anti-Mage, Phantom Assassin, and Muerta, you can settle for 120 last hits by 15 minutes and 180 to 200 last hits by 20 minutes, as these heroes need farming items like Maelstrom or Battle Fury to accelerate their farm. On the contrary, if you're playing a hero that has innate farming capabilities like Medusa, Templar Assassin, and Sven, you have no excuse for not having around 150 last hits by 15 minutes and 200 plus by 20 minutes, as these heroes are flash farmers. It is important to set these goals for yourself so you have a direction in the game and don't mindlessly roam around the map as a carry and grief games for yourself and your team. These goals will keep you focused on farming rather than wasting your time. Remember, I asked you to check your last hit numbers earlier? On your screen, you will see last hits at 20 minutes for every bracket. This is a Herald game where no one has more than 100 last hits at 20 minutes. This is a Guardian game where only 2 players have more than 100 last hits at 20 minutes, but nowhere even close to the 15-minute goal, nonetheless the 20-minute one that I've talked about. In Crusader, we see a bit of improvement, but not even close to the 200 last hit mark at 20 minutes. Archon, more or less the same as Crusader, but as you can see, the last hits are pretty low. Legend, almost similar as well, nowhere near 200 last hits at 20 minutes. Moving on to Ancient Bracket, what a surprise, nowhere near close to 200 either. This is a high divine game. Here we can see that Anti-Mage is 100 last hits above everyone else and has above 200 last hits at 20 minutes. Because of that, he's also 4k gold above the enemy carry, which is a complete item, and as a result, he won this game 15 minutes later. Let's check High Immortal now. This is a 10k average game. Both carries are well within the last hit ranges at 20 minutes. The only difference here is that these games are highly skilled and there's a lot of pressure on carry players, and farming isn't as easy as it would be in the lower brackets. The whole point of showing you all this is just to tell you that imagine if you're that player in Herald, Guardian, Crusader, Ancient, who knows how to farm, who knows how to be 100 last hits ahead of everyone else in the game. That's all you need to do to win these games. If you're going to have the same amount of last hits as other players in your bracket, how will you ever climb? I can guarantee you that if you average 180 last hits at 20 minutes in your next 10 games, you will win 7 out of those 10 games. The games you will lose will be either because there was a griefer or there was someone else who also knew how to farm well but also knew how to do something else better than you. Before we move on to how to achieve these goals, please make sure to like the video as it helps with the YouTube algorithm, and also subscribe. Now that we've gone over why farming is important, let's go over how you can achieve these goals. Let's start with 60 last hits at 10 minutes. For this, you need to work on 3 things: last hitting, aggro, and lane farming patterns. The amounts of free last hits that players miss is surreal. It's not just low rank players that do this. I do this, pro players do this, everyone does this. In order to improve your raw last hitting capability, go to the arcade section inside Dota and download a game called Training Polygon. Load up that game and play the last hit trainer inside it. There are other ways to practice last hitting like the one Valve made, but it's really bad and I wouldn't recommend anything over Training Polygon. It's pretty simple. Select your hero, buy the items that you would usually buy, and then start training. After that, all you have to do is try to outclass the sniper bot with decent reaction time. Do this for 10 minutes every day before you play and you will see significant improvements in your last hitting. One last hitting tip that I can give you is try to stand as close as you can to the creeps as a ranged hero, because it will result in your projectile reaching faster and you can secure the last hit easily. After that, your laning phase matters a lot. I've seen more than 100 replays where players feel like they can't lane because either they think their support is bad or the matchup is too unfavorable. I can assure you that if you learn how to abuse aggro, no lane will be difficult for you. Most players know that when you have more creeps than the enemy does, the lane will push into the enemy, which will disturb the creep equilibrium. In these cases, players usually aggro the enemy melee creeps onto their range creep to get it killed, which stops the lane from pushing into the enemy. That is one way to use aggro. I'm sure in a lot of your lanes, you find yourself in a situation where if you try to go for a last hit, you fear dying or losing all your HP, so you give up the wave for survival, which is the correct instinct, but most players don't realize that they can keep aggroing the wave towards them and eventually take it to a spot where the enemy cannot contest them. In the lane, there's a comfortable spot and an uncomfortable spot. The comfortable spot is where you don't feel pressured and you can easily last hit. The uncomfortable spot is where you are getting pressured or will get pressured if you go for the last hit. Ideally, you would prefer always having the lane in a comfortable spot. Take this example. Juggernaut is against the Wind Ranger, who is a ranged hero. She is consistently attacking the Juggernaut, but what Juggernaut does is that he aggroes the wave from that uncomfortable spot to a comfortable spot where the Wind Ranger can no longer attack him because she has a wave to worry about. The whole concept is to aggro the creeps to a point where the enemy cannot pressure you, so you can last hit in peace. Whenever you find the wave in a position where you will get harassed trying to last it, aggro it towards yourself rather than going to it. Another useful tip that you can implement is that if the wave is in a position where if you aggro the enemy melee creeps onto your range, the creeps won't enter your tower attack range, just keep doing it. Not only will this bring the wave into a comfortable spot for you, but it will also stop your wave from pushing into the enemy because your range creep will be dead. Try this practice against the sniper bot in the training polygon. Sniper has a limited range. If you keep aggroing the creeps outside of his attack range, he won't be able to deny the creeps. You should do the same exact thing in your probs. Ranged heroes have a projectile, melee heroes don't, so aggroing against both is going to help you not get denied. After that comes lane farming. Almost every carry hero has a point where they can start pushing in the wave and then farm the side camps. Usually this is going to be around level 5 or 6 with an item like Power Treads. For example, when Juggernaut hits level 5, he has 3 points in his Blade Fury. He can push in the wave and then use it to reliably clear the side camps. Another example is Medusa or Sven. These heroes, when they have 3 points in Cleave or Mystic Snake, can reliably farm the side camps. Your goal in terms of lane farming is when you hit this timing, push the wave into the enemy and then farm the side camp. If you can successfully do this, you will be farming around 10 plus creeps every minute, and eventually at minute 10, you will have more than 60 last hits. On the off chance your lane goes bad and your tower dies, essentially all you have to do in that situation is to de-push waves safely that are going to push into your tier 2 and farm something on the sides of the lane, preferably your outer jungle. After this point, your goal is to aim towards the 15th and 20 minute goal. which is 120 to 150 and 180 to 200 last hits depending upon your hero. Ideally, you're going to be farming in the same pattern as discussed above, which is farming in your own safe lane. As time goes on and you get more farm, you will get more items which will result in you farming faster. If you're successfully farming 2 waves and around 4 neutral camps every minute, you're getting around 20 plus creeps in a minute, which is already more than what we need to achieve our goal. There are 2 types of farming patterns. One is in your own safe lane and the other is in your triangle. The lane pattern is as follows. Push in the wave, farm the side camps that are closer from that position, push the next wave in and farm the remaining camps. The triangle pattern is as follows. At the start of the minute or at the end of the minute, you have to be at the triangle. Start by farming the large camp and then farm the ancients. Then see if there's a creep wave near your tower that you can safely farm. If not, then proceed towards the second ancient camp. That's about it. That's your farming pattern. If you have some time left, you can look to farm the large camp near the enemy tier 1. Now the question is, how do you decide when to go to the triangle? The first thing you need to determine is whether your hero is capable of farming ancients. Some heroes can do that innately, like Sven and Medusa. Heroes like Anti-Mage and Juggernaut need Battle Fury before they can do that. If your hero is capable of farming ancients, the next thing you need to see is if the enemy tier 1 safe lane tower is dead. If it's dead, then you should adopt the triangle farming pattern. If it's not dead, then it depends upon what kind of items you have. If, let's say, you have an Echo Saber plus Mask of Menace on Sven, or Medusa with a Manta, that means you're capable of flash farming. In this case, you should still adopt the triangle farming pattern even if the enemy top tower is not dead. This is because when you farm really fast, farming in your own lane doesn't benefit you as much as farming in the triangle does. You get more gold and XP in the triangle farming pattern, and not only that, you're going to pressure the enemy lanes better from the triangle farming pattern. Another thing is that you have to think about Dota in terms of a minute. You have a minute to farm as much as you can. You cannot afford to waste a single second. The way you move from camp to camp, the time you spend standing in one place, it all compounds up and makes you miss out on a lot of farm. In terms of farming patterns, you should know where your next destination is. For example, if you are pushing in a wave, you should know where you will be going next. Will it be the next wave? Will it be the side camp? It all depends upon the wave timers. Knowing where the next enemy wave is going to be without physically looking at it is very crucial. If you know where exactly the wave will be at specific times, you will not wait for it for seconds. Instead, you'll go and farm something else. Waves spawn at the start and the middle of every minute. In the side lanes, the waves will meet each other at their default spot after 27 seconds. In the mid lane, they will meet after 17 seconds. Calculate the rest by either watching them in a replay and absorb it in your muscle memory. It will save you a lot of time and you will get better at farming waves. In terms of farming priority, waves have the most priority, followed by ancient camps, then hard camps, medium, and small camp. Waves progress the game and give you more gold than any other neutral camp, so prioritize farming them as much as you can. Now that you know how to farm, and what is required to get 200 CS in 20 minutes, the next thing you need to integrate is a mentality. The mentality I'm about to tell you might sound super sus, but I will explain why this is necessary. I want you to ignore every single thing in the game. It doesn't matter what it is. If the enemy is taking Roshan, you don't give a fuck. If the enemy is taking your buildings, you don't give a fuck. If the enemy is taking your throne, you don't give a fuck. Your sole purpose in the game is to achieve these last hit goals and nothing else. Turn your brain off and focus solely on farming. The reasoning behind this is that the majority of players do random shit throughout the game, like joining horrible fights or just literally randomly walking around doing absolutely nothing and losing out 700 gold per minute. If you develop this mentality, you won't be doing random shit. You will be focused on trying to find more farm to achieve your last hit goals. Your victory is tied behind these last hit goals and not the enemy ancient. Integrate that in your brain. While I understand that AFK farming is a bad habit to develop, let me clear this up. Pushing in waves and farming as a carry is not AFK farming. The pressure you create by consistently pushing in waves progresses the game. The second thing is that this mentality is going to teach you to farm, and once you know how to farm properly without really thinking about it, that's when you have to integrate fighting into it. Until then, you're just hitting creeps for the first 20 minutes of the game. If you really want this to work for you and gain MMR, trust me with this advice and try it for the next 20 games. Some last bit of advice from my side: if you don't get 60 last hits by 10 minutes or 150 by 15 minutes, don't panic. The thing that you have to be sure about is getting around 200 CS by 20 minutes, no matter what happens. That is your ultimate goal. If you are interested in private coaching, you can join my Discord, linked in the description. Please make sure to subscribe and like the video for more high quality content like this. Do let me know in the comments if you have any feedback. Otherwise, have a nice day and good luck with your games.